This is activity 47, and I've made a big deal in this course about the three basic rights of life, liberty, and property, and that concept really does appear all over the place in our tradition. In this activity, what I'm going to emphasize is that the founders of the U.S. believed that this wasn't just something that human beings made up at some point along the way, that human beings have the rights of life, liberty, and property. As they understood it, we get these rights from God, that human beings are not the ultimate authority on what's right and what's wrong, that there's a standard outside of human beings for what's right and wrong. This was something they believed for a number of reasons, where there are consequences of this. Just to take one that's really essential to the founding period, it was really important for them to establish that government does not decide what's right and wrong. Because if government decides what's right and wrong, then there's no way in the world to say that what a government is doing is wrong if they're the ones who define it. So unless they can have a standard outside of government and say, well, God says these things are wrong, then they can say, and the government of Great Britain is doing something that's wrong. If, to take another example, if the government of Germany decides what's right and wrong, then there's no way to say that killing 6 million Jews or millions of other people is wrong, because they would just say, no, it's right to do this. But the founders of the U.S. saw that there was a need for a standard outside of government, as I said, to decide right and wrong. You can see this, James Wilson insisting on this at the beginning of the activity, where he emphasizes that in the institution of governments, they're not trying to acquire new rights, but what they're trying to do is to provide new security for the rights that God gives to people, that, as he says, are all wise and all beneficent Creator. And in A, B, C, and D, you'll see a similar theme here. Hamilton saying that the Supreme Being, or God, gives existence to man, also invests human beings with an inviolable right to personal liberty, personal safety. So in a state of nature where there is no government, it's still wrong to harm people, because, again, it's not government that establishes what's right and wrong. It's not wrong because there's a law against it. There's a law against it because it's wrong, he's saying. And you can't harm people in their life, limbs, property, or liberty, even if there is no government, because God gives people those rights. They're just things that are part of what it means to be human, as created by God. Dickinson and letter B, our liberties don't come from charters. So when students say, well, the Constitution gives us the right to free speech, that's not accurate in the American tradition, to put it that way. The correct way would be to say that God gives human beings a right to freedom of speech, and our Constitution secures that right, and so on with all the other rights that are guaranteed in the Bill of Rights or other parts of the Constitution. Dickinson is insisting that these rights come from the King of Kings, the Lord of all the earth. So there's a kind of sacredness. I've been calling this a sacred triangle. So in my little picture here, there's a little eerie glow coming out of this triangle, just to emphasize that this is something that is, for the founders of the U.S., something of more than human design or construction, which you may not agree with, and that's fine. Personally, whatever a person's views are about God is not the point here. But I think it is important to see how the founders understood God and how they understood the role of religion in a free society. That's what we're going to be exploring in these next couple of activities. Jefferson noticed in this, let me just try to emphasize this, that he's not seeing a separation between religion or a belief in God and politics. He's seeing them as being absolutely inseparable. He says, can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed their only firm basis, that conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are of the gift of God. So what he's saying, and we'll explore this more in another activity, is that these rights of life, liberty, and property will not be secure, cannot be secure, unless people believe, and this is both rulers and the people who are citizens, they have to believe that these rights come from God, and that God doesn't like it when people harm other people. And so you can't have security of life, liberty, and property, which is an essential part of liberty, as we've seen, without people believing that there is a God who gives these rights to people and doesn't like it when people harm people. So those are absolutely inseparable, and we'll see that more in, I think it's activity 49. And then this famous statement in activity 47D, where the Declaration says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So again, it's seeing our rights as coming from God, and that the point of government is not to give us rights, but to secure the rights that we have